The sun burned fiercely over the empty quarter, the largest sand desert on Earth. Imagine waves of golden dunes stretching endlessly in every direction, shifting with the wind like a living, breathing creature. It is a place so vast and so harsh that few people ever dare to travel deep inside it. But Zaid, a 17-year-old Bedouin boy, dreamed of doing exactly that. Ever since he was a child, he'd sat at his grandfather's feet, listening to stories tales of hidden oases shimmering like jewels, lost caravans swallowed by the sands, and ancient legends buried deep beneath the dunes. Now, Zaid wanted to see the desert's secrets for himself. One crisp winter morning, he packed his camel, a loyal companion named Sultan, with water skins, bundles of dates, and a trusty compass. As he was about to leave, his grandfather placed a gentle, weathered hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Zaid," he said softly, his voice full of a lifetime of wisdom, "the desert is beautiful, but it tests the heart of every traveler." Zaid looked into his grandfather's eyes and nodded, his own filled with determination. "I'm ready," and with that, he turned and walked into the vast, profound silence of the empty quarter. For the first 2 days, Zaid's journey was peaceful. A cool wind brushed against his face, a welcome relief from the sun. Sultan walked with steady, confident steps, his hoofs making a soft rhythm on the sand. At night, the sky was a breathtaking spectacle. It exploded with stars so many that Zaid felt like he was traveling not through a desert, but through the very fabric of the universe itself. He would lie on his back, staring up at the brilliant tapestry, feeling small yet connected to everything. But on the 3rd day, the desert's mood began to change. As they guided Sultan over the crest of a particularly tall dune, he heard a strange sound. It was like voices, faint and distant, carried on the wind. It was unsettling, a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Is someone there?" he called out, his voice sounding small in the immense emptiness. But the only answer was the soft, eerie hiss of shifting sand. He pushed the feeling aside and continued forward, but the whispers seemed to follow him, growing a little louder, a little clearer. There are old legends that say the dunes of the empty quarter hold the memories of travelers who never returned. Zaid's heart began to pound in his chest, a drumbeat of fear against his ribs. Yet he refused to turn back. He had come too far. Just before the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Zaid spotted something unusual. Ahead, nestled near a large rock formation, a small fire was burning, its flames dancing in the twilight. Curious but cautious, he guided Sultan closer. A tall man in clean white robes sat by the fire, his face partly hidden by the folds of a traditional keffiyeh. When he looked up, his eyes were calm but incredibly deep, like the eyes of someone who had seen countless seasons pass. "Peace be upon you," Zaid said, his voice respectful. The stranger looked at him and replied, his voice smooth and even, "and upon you." The empty quarter is no place for a young traveler to be alone. Zaid straightened his shoulders, a hint of pride in his voice. "I'm searching for the lost oasis." The stranger let out a low, soft chuckle. "Many have searched for it, none have found it, but I believe I can," Zaid insisted. The man studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his spirit. "Confidence is a good quality," he said, "but in this desert, wisdom is what keeps you alive." He then pointed to the northern sky, where the stars were beginning to fade behind a gathering haze. "A sandstorm approaches, a big one. You must stay here with me tonight." Zaid hesitated for a moment, but the man's words fell true. He agreed. That night, the wind howled like a furious beast. Sand whipped against the rocks with incredible force, but Zaid and the stranger remained safe in the shelter of the formation, warmed by the fire. Eventually, Zaid drifted off to sleep, lulled by the storm's roar. When he woke in the morning, the sky was clear and calm. But the stranger was gone. The only sign he had ever been there were his footprints in the sand. Zaid followed them, but they ended suddenly, just a few feet from the camp, as if the man had simply vanished into thin air. Shaken but resolute, Zaid continued his journey north. By noon, his unease returned. The sky, once a brilliant blue, began to darken with an unnatural, sickly yellow hue. He turned and saw it, a massive, terrifying wall of sand racing toward him, a giant wave about to crash over the desert. "Sultan, move!" Zaid shouted, his voice tight with panic. The camel broke into a sprint, its powerful legs churning through the sand, but the storm was too fast, too powerful. The wind roared in his ears, and the sand began to sting his face like 1,000 tiny needles. In moments, everything disappeared in a swirling, suffocating orange blur. Zaid wrapped his scarf tightly around his face, buried his head against Sultan's side, and held onto the saddle with all his might. Time seemed to stop. Hours felt like days as he was trapped inside the violent chaos of the storm. Finally, almost as suddenly as it began, the wind died down and the storm calmed. Zaid slowly unwrapped his face, spitting out sand. But his relief was short-lived. He was completely and utterly lost. His compass was gone, buried somewhere under the newly formed dunes. His water supply had been tossed about, and one of the skins had burst, cutting his precious supply in half. He looked around, and everywhere looked exactly the same endless dunes stretching to a featureless horizon. For the first time, true fear began to creep into his heart. But then he remembered his grandfather's words, "A brave heart listens to the desert instead of fearing it." He took a deep breath, calmed his racing heart, and decided to trust his instincts. At dawn the next day, after a cold and difficult night, Zaid saw something glimmering far away on the horizon. "No, it must be a mirage," he muttered to himself, his voice hoarse from thirst. Mirages were the desert's cruelest trick, promising life where there was only more sand. Yet something inside him, a deep primal instinct, pushed him forward. He had to know. After hours of walking under the blazing sun, his body screaming in protest, Zaid finally collapsed from exhaustion. He fell to the sand, his vision blurring. This was it, he thought. Sultan, ever loyal, nudged him gently with his head, refusing to leave his side. With the last of his strength, Zaid forced his eyes open one more time. Water, palm trees, greenery, shade. It wasn't a mirage. It was real, a real oasis, hidden perfectly between towering dunes like a secret jewel in the heart of the desert. Tears streamed down Zaid's face, not tears of fear, but of overwhelming, unbelievable relief. He crawled to the water's edge and drank deeply, the cool liquid a miracle on his parched throat. He washed the sand from his face and rested under the shade of the palm trees, the gentle breeze feeling like a blessing from heaven. As he lay there in the perfect stillness of the oasis, he began to realize something incredible. The whispers in the dunes, the mysterious stranger who warned him of the storm itself that threw him off course, they weren't random events. They were a path. They all led him here. He understood then that the lost oasis wasn't a place you could find on a map. Maybe, just maybe, it was a place that found those who truly needed it, those who proved they were worthy. After regaining his strength over several days, Zaid carefully marked the location of the oasis, committing its surrounding features to memory. Then he began his long journey home. As he neared his village, his family, who had feared the worst, ran to meet him, their faces filled with tears of joy. His grandfather embraced him tightly, his grip strong and proud. "I knew the desert would test you," he said, a wide smile on his face. "But you returned stronger." Zaid looked back toward the endless desert horizon. "I learned one thing, grandfather," he said, his voice now carrying a new weight of experience. "The empty quarter is alive. It watches, it guides, and it rewards those who respect it." The old man nodded, his eyes shining with pride. From that day forward, Zaid was no longer just a boy. He became a legend in his own right, the boy who found the lost oasis, the one who survived the greatest desert on earth, not by conquering it, but by listening to its whispers and discovering its hidden heart. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more adventures. See you next time!